This call on behalf of ACT, and we are not supporting this bill, the Crimes Theft by Employer Amendment Bill, Mr. Speaker. But I would like to acknowledge member in charge of the bill, Camilla Belich. She worked diligently on this bill in the Select Committee, and as a member of the Select Committee, the Education and Workforce Select Committee that considered this bill, I saw that she worked really hard on the committee for this bill. And I also want to acknowledge all submitters. There were 13 submissions, and out of which 5 submitters were heard. They presented their submission. This is by being there in person, and also some by video conferencing. So I want to thank them, and I want to say that their contribution is highly valued. And in the Select Committee process, that is very important for all Select Committee members to give consideration to each and every point that is raised by all submitters, and that was duly done. And the whole Select Committee, Mr. Speaker, I must say that worked very sincerely on this bill to improve this bill, and the evidence of that is that this bill has come back as an amended version of the bill. But Mr. Speaker, still the ACT party believes that we cannot support this bill because there are enough provisions available for the issue that this bill is trying to address. And I want to acknowledge that yes, there are some employers, those who exploit employees. It's a very small number of employers, and there needs to be a very strong message sent to them. But the strong message is being sent through a lot of legislations which already exist. And I know that as an immigrant myself, I hear a lot of stories from migrant people, migrant workers, those who come here having that hope of coming and working hard and making a better life here in New Zealand, end up getting exploited. And that is why, Mr. Speaker, I want to highlight that in the Immigration Act, the penalties that are there for employers, those who exploit these vulnerable migrant workers, are quite harsh. And that is very important that we acknowledge that those kind of penalties are already there. But then, Mr. Speaker, as we have heard before from the member in charge about the difference between migrant workers versus workers, those who are on other visas. And so yes, overall, if I want to classify workers into 2 groups, that can be migrant workers and others, those who are on permanent visas here in New Zealand. But Mr. Speaker, the issue here is that we are trying to solve a problem that we already have a solution for. So the problem, yes, I acknowledge there is a problem,
a solution that ain't criminalising them at this present point in time and allowing them to pass the bus. I'm sorry, I'm just the manager. I'm not the business owner. Please go to the business owner for my crimes and offences.
Yep. A very small number of employers do have the tendency of exploiting their workers. But here it's very important to note that generally employers are conscious of their reputation. Any kind of reputational damage is not something that any employer, any good employer would tolerate. And they'll do anything to ensure that they have a good reputation, because if their reputation is not good, then their employees will know that. The environment there will be quite toxic. Nobody would want to work.
Except when you sit down there, these types of employers who have bad reputations sit down there and they go to Work and Income to send people for jobs. Yep. And then Work and Income bullies beneficiaries into these subpar business owners who don't deserve employees to sit there and do work. So guess what, Parmjeet? These bad employers, are going to get vulnerable employees from Work and Income who are going to sit there and do it. And, guess what? You should be sanctioned if you turn down a job, even if it's with a scumbag employer who deserves to sit down there and should be really in a jail cell.
And not to mention, when you've got migrants that are in debt and are desperate to make some money to stay in the country, they'll take any fucking job.
And they don't have wins to fall on.
Correct. And they don't, a lot of these people are not members of unions. They're screwed.
Yeah.
And you've got all these people that are looking for work, and you've got lots of employers that are like, great.
Yeah. Okay.
For that employer, if it has been found out that that employer has not paid somebody that the person should have actually been paid. So that reputation of that business is really important, because if that reputation is not maintained, not with the staff that is already there in the business will leave, but they will also fail to attract any more. No, I'm not talking about skilled, even unskilled people will not be wanting to work for that business if they see that the reputation of that business is not good. So we need to keep that in mind. So any kind of unethical, illegal activity, Mr. Speaker, we do not support. And we want to see that all businesses are complying with all employment legislations that we have. And keeping that in mind, I also want to see what the member is wanting to do. What member is wanting to do is take this issue to the next level. Instead of it going through civil court process, the member wants to see that it goes through the criminal process. But Mr. Speaker, it's not going to make it easier for those employees, because both processes are going to be equally tedious. It's not like the criminal process is going to be easier. And if a complaint is laid with police, that doesn't mean the police is going to give priority to this case. They have so many serious criminal issues to deal with. And as this bill is presented as being tough on crime, Mr. Speaker, I must highlight that the member, the party, Labour Party, in the previous government, they had a very lenient approach towards criminals. They wanted to reduce.
Did they really have a lenient approach to criminals? Okay, so you're tough on crime, except for employers, Parmjeet, but you're tough on everything else. You know, are you going to be tough on tax fraud? Are you going to be tough on immigration abuse? Are you going to be tough on false false pretenses, misuse of the worker visa program? You know, you talk about how Labor was lax. I'll be honest, they aren't perfect. There's a lot of things they've done wrong. But, you know, they weren't exactly soft on crime.
And what was done wrong by Labor is not putting in this bill sooner.
And also, they weren't going, oh, look, Parmjeet, we've just sat there and have another person sentenced to crime. Oh, look, Parmjeet, another ram raid has been sentenced to crime. You know, the justice process is not exactly instant, like instant coffee. It takes time, and if you want process to be done right, you've got to accept it to take time. That's not called being soft on crime, but you don't even want employees to have that.
She's a scientist, and she's not bringing any data to the table. She has a PhD. She's a scientist. Where's the data? I'm losing brain cells listening to her. She hasn't cited anything that I can look at.
Yeah.
Numbers of prisoners in prison. But this is presented as being tough on crime. Yes, it is crime if somebody's wage is not paid the way it should be.
Yes, and you don't want it criminalised if they withhold the money. Have we had enough of Parmjeet?
I think my brain's cooked.
Okay. Please take your brain out and put a fresh one in.
Yep.